Hello, this is Shannon Flummerfelt for Flip Schools. Welcome to the Sustaining Improvement series. This video is one in a series of 5 designed for building administrators, and it will introduce you to a tool called the 5S, which is a great tool for understanding how to sustain improvement in your buildings. This particular video focuses on steps 3 and 4 out of 5, and so please listen to the other videos if you find this one of interest to make sure you're not missing the whole understanding of this. Also in this video series, there are a few other videos that will be of interest to maybe help you to contextualize this a little more. Well, as you work in your building as an administrator and you start to see flipped classrooms emerging and you're maybe thinking about flipping your school or doing a blended approach on some level, what you want to be able to do is be able to pull out of all of this excitement some of the dynamics that are needed, not only to just be able to foster improvement based on the exciting new ideas and the innovation that's possible in flipped schools, but actually to be able to lead and manage the process of being able to take something that makes sense and works really well and not just talk about it for a little while and kind of let it fly out the window, but actually to get it to a point where it represents improvement, and then you can bring it into this process of being able to sustain improvement within your building. And so this 5S tool is a nice way to do that. It's just really not that hard to see and understand what it can do for you once you've used it once or twice. But what the 5S is it provides a map or a visual management tool for you as the instructional leader of your building. And what it does is it allows you to very clearly and collectively work with faculty in your building, either in cohort groups or departments or as a whole faculty or through school improvement processes in order to both develop and maintain improvement. And the 5S has 5 steps to it. The first step is sorting. The second one is setting, which are in one video, and then shining and standardizing, steps 3 and 4 are presented in this video, and then sustaining is the 5th step, which is also presented in a video in this series. So what we're going to do here is take a look at this idea of 5S'ing improvement in reading instruction. And again, why would you do this? You would do this so that you can begin to capture and maintain what is best practice in your building. And, once that becomes more clearly managed, then it's a lot easier to go ahead and use that as a springboard for more improvement. So first of all, what we're going to do here is just kind of lay out a little bit of a review, but what we're trying to do in the 5S and in these 2 steps 3 and 4, which focus on shining and standardizing, is to, after you've made it through the first 2 steps, and in this part of the 5S, what you're trying to do is bring forth best practice and pilot it, and then begin to decide how to move from a pilot to where what is figured out that works well in a pilot becomes standardized practice in your building. So for instance, if we're looking at reading instruction, you may begin this whole process by figuring out what really matters in reading instruction. What is good reading instruction? In one of the other videos, this list is presented. But, your building may come up with 2 items or 20 items or, whatever makes sense for you. I'm not suggesting this is the list of what matters in reading instruction. It's just an example. So you'll have to contextualize this for your building in terms of figuring out what is it that we're trying to do. So in this particular example, we have this list of 9 strategies that have been identified as mattering or making a difference in terms of reading instruction producing student achievement at levels that we're looking for in terms of improvement. And so as this building worked through this, they went ahead and sorted this out. They figured out, 3 of these are we don't even need to work on, but we do have them set into categories now where we understand there is a real high priority need here. And that was strategy number 2. And that is that, you know what, we do not have a timely assessment and intervention process in place for reading instruction. So now what we can do is move into the 3rd step, and that is shining, and actually begin to figure out what does this mean to improve the amount of time it takes to assess and provide appropriate intervention for students who are floundering with reading. So what we would do is move down into shining and say, you know what, here's what we need to do. Let's examine what this process looks like. You know, how do we create a timely assessment? Why don't we have a timely assessment? And then what do we need to do for intervention? So as this building administrator worked with faculty, they began to examine this and found out, you know what, our assessment process and then the follow-up intervention process takes way too long. And in this case, an improvement was identified where the process was actually mapped out in a value stream map, and that's actually been presented to you in another series of videos here that you can take a look at. But you can understand the process and lay it out and figure out just on a timeline, how long does all this stuff take? Well, in the case of this situation, it took 20 weeks. That's a long time for a student to just be in an assessment process when you already know the student's in trouble in terms of reading. And so what this faculty did with this principal is work together and try to minimize the pre-qualifying time of the RTI process and crunch it down from 20 weeks to 5 weeks. Now, how did they do that? Well, what they did is that instead of just using the assessments, a pull-out assessment that would be a part of the pre-qualifying RTI process, they actually said, you know, we'll do one of those assessments right away when a student gets referred, but we'll also use student work as a part of the formative assessment process. And in doing so, we can crunch this down from 20 weeks to 5 weeks for pre-qualifying. So now what we've got is this idea of we are going to pilot a 5-week pre-qualifying process now where we've changed things up a little bit. Let's pilot this and figure out, does it work? Does it not work? What can we do to, you know, tweak it? Or what do we need to do to try something totally different? That's what shining is. It's actually what we would call, you know, piloting best practice. And so we'll go ahead and try that for the next 5 weeks and come up with some conclusions about, you know, 5 weeks works or it doesn't work. Maybe we can shorten it. Maybe it needs to be a little bit longer. Maybe we need to change around some of the ideas we had about using student work and a formative assessment process or whatever. Those are things that you'll all discover as a part of improvement work in shining. So now you've gone ahead and you've worked your way through the 3rd part of 5S. You've done sorting, setting, shining, and now let's take a look at what standardizing would look like. Standardizing is actually just an extension of shining, just as we saw in one of the other videos that sorting and setting kind of go together, and then shining and standardizing kind of go together. They sort of flow into each other. So what we were doing here is we were piloting something for 5 weeks to see, you know, does it work or not? Now we've got that all figured out. Now we're ready to go ahead and take the pilot that's been tweaked and improved, shined up, if you will, and go ahead and try to put it into a standardized protocol. So what'll happen here is that we will need to have documentation that there have been changes made in the amount of time that the at-risk student takes to get to intervention. And so, you know, one way to document that would simply be to use a quick little process map or a value stream map. Look, here are the steps 1, 2, 3, 4 that we use over a 5-week time period to take an at-risk student to intervention. You know, that's now going to be used throughout the building, and it'll be a part of standardized practice. Also, some of the things that you'll take a look at would be the quality of the intervention. So right now we're rolling this out. It becomes standardized practice. You're starting to scale it up and standardize it. So pay attention. Is there quality? Is there fidelity here with this intervention? Or are people looking at this new process and saying, you know what, that's fine. They can have that process. I'm still going to do it my old way. And so when that happens as a building administrator, you need to tend to that and make sure that the fidelity and the quality of that process is maintained. And then you're actually looking now, okay, what are the improvements in student reading, and you're attending to those. And if you don't see those happening, then you need another cycle of improvement. One thing you don't want to see happen is a pilot becomes standardized if there are problems in it. So, standardizing is also improvement work where you can really attend to some of these things. But as a building administrator, your role is to make sure that people actually have shifted their thinking and shifted some of their actions that they've taken traditionally based on this previous 20-week format now to a 5-week format. So there are things that you'll have to do as a building administrator to make that clear, to provide that documentation, make sure that it becomes a part of common practice in your building. All right, so now we're at this fourth step in the 5S with sorting, setting, shining, and standardizing being completed. There'll be another video for you to listen to if you're interested on step 5, that is sustaining. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you want any more information, you can go to the Flip Institute website at theflipinstitute.com. Hey, thanks for listening, everyone.